Good morning. It's great to have you here for Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month programming at Metropolitan Community College. People with ancestral roots in Asia and the islands of the Pacific have been and continue to be integral to the story of America. To celebrate their heritage and contributions, May was designated Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. The month of May was selected in recognition of the arrival of the first Japanese immigrants in the United States on May 7, 1843, and the significant contributions of Chinese laborers to the completion of North America's transcontinental railroad on May 10, 1869. Your microphones are silenced. Please use the chat function to send communications to moderator Barbara Velasquez. I will present your questions to our speaker after her presentation. And also, please watch the chat for a link to an online evaluation. So during COVID, the more of the isolated COVID period, let's say, it was my great pleasure to join a Zoomed presentation from the University of Nebraska, Omaha, where I virtually met Ms. Manger. I immediately was impressed by her genuine presence and knack for knowing how to describe the life and experiences of Karen refugees. She was appropriately open about helping us to know how our communication could positively or negatively impact newcomers to our community. With every encounter, I am more excited about the natural gifts Manger brings to the Omaha community. So please prepare your questions for the post-presentation discussion and just drop them in the chat to moderator Barbara Velasquez. Your great questions will help all of us learn and grow. Born and raised on the border of Thailand and Myanmar, Manger is a Karen former refugee and an education advocate. She is a visionary storyteller who is curiously seeking to improve herself and others. In 2020, Manger founded the Karen Educational Resources, a social media-based youth empowerment and educational advising program. Karen Educational Resources, or KER, the mission is to provide educational-based information and promote the importance of all types of education to the Karen audience. Please welcome Manger for her presentation, Working with the Karen Community.
Thank you. That sounded so much better than who I am. First, I just want to say thank you, and I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, first, before I start my presentation, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that I am on the traditional land of the Omaha, the Pawnee, the Oto, and the Ponca, and pay my respect to elders, both past and present. So a little bit about me. I, like Barbara said, I was born in the border of Thailand and Burma. My parents were, you guys probably already know, from people from Burma, right? That's what we know from like the books and the movies and everything. And I wanna make sure I be careful with my word here. I will try my best to decolonize some of the words and my storytelling here. So I came to the States in 2011. I graduated from Benson in 2014, and I came to UNO, and I graduated from School of Communication and Fine Art Media in 2019. And I also did a minor in sociology. And then I served in AmeriCorps for a year, and now I work at UNO as one of the staff here in terms of learning community. My job is just to make college a little less scary for students. And I'm also a grad student right now, and this is my Gallup strength. So our agenda for today, like I said, it's going to be more like storytelling, and then I will also provide some of the knowledge on immigration, refugee backgrounds, and how did we come here. And I would also talk about some of the concern in our Omaha community, and then I will also offer some of the application and recommendation ideas. And then I also have a slide of online resources, and then I have a contact information, and then we will go on to Q&A. So like I said, the country where my parents were from, it's, we all know it Burma. But again, this is everything called Burma after the colonized went there, when they colonized the country. So before this became a map, the Karen people have their own country, right? They have their own homeland. They call it Gafule. So it's somewhat like this, right? The map is not really, I don't want to say it's the right map, but it's something like this. And then, there's no like scholar that did research on us particularly. So we don't really have like a legit research done in our population, but we used to have our own government, right? Our own history, we have our own language, we have our own culture, we have our own national flag, right? Anthem, song, music, everything, you name it. We are also known as Indigenous people of Burma. So that's my parents. And then because of the Civil War that happened in 1940, well, the Korean Story Revolution in 1949. And then from there, it just, constant war. And then my parents fled to Thailand in 1988. 89, I think, and then I was just born in Thailand in the camp, so I grew up there. So it's been a really like a gap there, because I didn't really know much about what happened in the country, but I also experienced a little bit of the Civil War when I was in the border, because when I was 2, there were a fighting happened at the border. So I remember running with my chicken leg in the camp to try to hide from the bombing and the like shooting and all that. And my dad had a picture of me. It's crazy. And I remember he hid me in one of the neighbors' restroom because he forgot to take his bag of rice. So luckily I listened. I just like stay in that hidden place until he came back, and then we kept on continuing to run. So that's like my first memory. And I like to use the iceberg to like explain everything. This is true to almost everything. If we want to look at like success, what we see on the tip of the iceberg is like only 10%, right? And at the bottom is so much more. So and that same goes to like any other case. Everything is not black and white and not like things that we see. There's so much more underneath the iceberg. So to understand culture, we have to really look deep into like the invisible stuff. So like family tradition, you will be able to see that things that you can see are like clothing, language, accents, stuff like that. So I found this picture on Google, but I have made my own iceberg just for Korean case. And when I say Korean, I think it's also true to like any other immigrant population, like not just Korean, but Korean, Mon, Chin, Kachin, Syrian refugee, right? And then now we also have a lot of refugee from Ukraine, so that's they have been through a lot more than what just we see on the news. So things that you can see is like immigration status, their names, their clothing, family dynamics, education degree, body language, food, music, language, accents, holiday behaviors and practices. But things that we cannot see is like life experience, right? If I did not tell you about what happened to me and my dad, you will never, imagine or know that that's my experience. And then trauma is one of the biggest one. And then stories, our stories, our mental health issues, our immigration journey, communication style, values, resiliency. We also have build resiliency along the way. And shame is also something that I also want to like talk about, because I think like when you go out into the to the world, it's sometimes the cognitive that come with like having refugee status. Sometimes it's almost like ashamed, right? Like, oh my gosh, this is like the people. But then I think about it the other way, like it could be a resiliency story, right? Like you are the people who've been through so much, but like you made it to here. So that's just something that I want to put it up there. And the insecurity also one, heavy accents, not like worrying if people like we know what you're saying. And yeah, like I think another thing is like names, like Korean names is very so I don't know if you guys know, but like we don't really adopt last names or first name. It's just like the whole name. So example, we have like part two, right? And part two is supposed to be like a one word, but since we came here, they just put it into a different like term. So now Paul become the first name and to become the last name. So it's pretty common in like Southeast Asia. Many culture, they don't really use first or last name, but we are just trying to adapt to the culture here. So now except my name, it just pretty boy is like the second part of my dad name, so it's now become like my last name, and my brother doesn't have that last name either, so it's pretty sometimes it's annoying, like but I think it's just what it is. It's pretty unique. And the reason I mentioned this is because, like, let's say a student's name is part two, which is like a flowery golden, right? Like it's like it has meanings to it, but like when you divide them, you just like take away that meaning of the name. So I really hope that we recognize the different unique of like our names and then celebrate it. And I would say some people are like, some Korean, they don't really like want to teach people, right? Oh, whatever you want to call it. But I think it is very important to like encourage them to like to help you teach you like how to say the correct way. And another example, we have a student's name Rokiko, right? But gay is like when you like spell it in English, it's like Gay. So then it's not gay. So like he's embarrassed, but it's not really gay, right? It's Rokiko, which is like someone who's like a gathering, like a country national together. Like it has a really beautiful name into that, but like when you put it into word, now he's like Ro, so everybody just call him Ro instead of Rogika. So that's something that I want to talk about for the underneath the iceberg. Fear of change is something that very it's like it's very unconscious. I think many people, like a parenting, let's say example, they the way they raise kids in the camp is so different than how they are expecting to raise kids here. And then because of they are what is it, like fear by the authority, right? Okay, if I don't say yes to my kid, what if like the police come and then like arrest me? And there's so many change, and they are just like under a lot of pressure. And I think many parents don't really know how to raise kids the right way here. And I have no kids, so I don't know. I can like speak on behalf of that, but that's something that we have heard so much from our community. That's something that we struggle with. And then so yeah, these are some of the picture, because I think pictures speak more than word can offer. So the land, like think about how these people, back home or back in like the host country in the refugee camp, this is their house, right? And then now you are in the States, and then you have to like adapt and then navigate between a lot of like city bus, right? Housing, food, like there's so much. So it is harder, and now it's required a new resiliency, right? And then in the camps, we are surrounded by wire fence, so we couldn't really go outside. So I spent 14 years, inside the camp, and the kids didn't really know what the outside world looked like. Whereas in America, you get to go freely, you get to go to places where you can enjoy your liberty. It's not the same as people with the refugee background. Language, this is our alphabet. Think about it, like we went from Gado to A. It's a lot to adapt. Like it's not like Spanish to English, it's like Korean to English. And many times there's not direct translation for English word to Korean word. So like many of our students have to like learn some trick to like really understand some of the words that they are learning. Let's say globalization, right? We don't have that word in Korean. We have to like know the different part of the English word in order to come up with our own definition. So they have to work different layers in order to like understand things in English. So that's maybe one of the reasons we take forever to write essay in your English class because there's so many steps that we have to like go through here. The food, it's more like a curry there, and rice is everything. Like we eat rice for breakfast, rice for lunch, rice for dinner, and maybe that because we did not have much. So, and I think many times the kids here didn't want to like bring lunch to school because like it requires so much work, you know, like it's very oily, like curry, like it need to be warm to like, you know, for you to like enjoy it. Whereas like hamburger is a lot easier to make, right? Like you put whatever, like microwave it, done. So yeah, that's just little things that I want to point out. And then school system, in the camp, the kids were trained to really go to school, listen to the lecture, do your homework, memorize it, take the exam, that's it, right? And then if you pass the class, you move on to the next grade. Whereas in here, we encourage our students to ask questions, to be what's the word, to integrate with one another. And then, you know, the girls and the boys can sit, you know, together, it doesn't matter. But in the camp, like they really have like the boys sit on the other side, the girls sit on the other side. So there's like a little power dynamics that happen too, where like I think it's pretty it's happened all the time in the Southeast culture, you know, Asia culture, because of the collectivistic culture and then authoritarian, you know, leadership style that has been adopted by many years, and for them it's a lot harder to change. But that's something that I want to also mention. And the education in the camp, even though we were not really recognized by the Thai you know, authority, we were able to learn about our own culture, our own language. So that's, you know, it's something, it's good for current students who grew up in the camp. They are a lot more aware of their own culture compared to the kids who grew up in Burma, where it has been Burmanized, and the kids are not able to like learn about their own language and culture and history. So that's something. And then here we have, I just like this picture. So, you know, if you think about the lifestyle, like here in the States, we can just go to Costco and they get a lot of like rice, you know, and like napkins, oil, whatever we need. It's just like, what, 15 minutes away. But in, you know, the Korean homeland, like, you know, they spend their whole life, you know, be out there in the field, you know, make plenty rice. There's a lot of process. I don't know. I did not grow up with like my grandma, so I did not know much. But based on what I know, it's like life is their, you know, rice is their life. They take care of, you know, the food, the animals. They like tree, water, everything. So it's just so different, and sometimes it's hard to like for them to adapt to here. Another thing, you know, like life is a lot not easy, like more chill here in like a Korean land, where here in the States, I think we're more like, okay, let's do this meeting by this time. Okay, we're gonna like try to do, you know, like life is more structured here. And we have like a specific goal and plans that, you know, we have to like achieve, and then, you know, success means so much different from the people back home. So for young people like myself, it's like, okay, what does success really means to me? Does it mean like I have to like get a really like, you know, nice education, go to office 8 to 5, or like, I don't know, it's just like very it's something to talk about. But yeah, and then a little bit about US refugee resettlement timeline. It's not really easy for us to come here. We have to go through a lot of process. So first, we identify, who should be who should come here, right? Who needed the help to come here. So that refugee status, and then many of us have this status because we had to run from our homeland where it's not really safe for us to live back home, or like we're not really allowed to go out even in our host country in Thailand, right? So that in that case, we are qualified to for resettlement, and then refer to the US, and then they do security clearance, and then in-person interview. It's very I remember, I think it took us like almost a year to finish like this in-person interview, because it's so intense. There are so many questions, and then I remember I would go to school, and then I would have like my brother would call me and say, we have to go do like this interview thing. I don't know what happened, and then we just have to go wait for like a whole day, no food. I don't know, and it's very hot outside, and then the Thai agency people, or the UN people are inside just like doing a lot of paperwork. So it's very intense, and the medical screening is also very intense. It took my family about like 2 years also to like finish everything, but unfortunately my dad passed away right doing this process. He had to go through this tuberculosis testing, and then so what happened was like the doctor was wrongly diagnosed him as a what is this, tuberculosis, but his true disease was actually a cancer, lung cancer. So with raw medication, he like 3 months later, he just like passed away. So a year later, it's just me, my mom, and my older brother, we came here. So yeah, it's hard. Like I have experienced a lot of like death within like the refugee community back home. My best friend mom also like ended up dying. So for me, like some part of me is like, are we like treated as like research, right? Because like we are not really considered, or like we are not really considered as Thai citizenship. So I think we're not really treated equally as Thai people. So yeah, that's something. And then next, they have like matching with the sponsor agency. So when we first came, we used to live in Vegas. So it was with one of the African community agency. So we went there, and then my mom couldn't find a job there. So we ended up waiting for our green card. Then 16 months later, we moved to Omaha. So that's the timeline. And then something else that I want to mention is this. I know sometimes it could be very controversial, but I think this is still something good to like think about when we work with people in general, not just like the current population, but like anyone, right? We work with students, and sometimes students have different need, and for our current and refugee immigrant community, they have like so much need from the bottom, right? Sometimes you are worried about not having food at home. Sometimes it's like, okay, mom could have find a job, so now I have to work, so I can go, I can like give my full attention to school. So stuff like that. And if you think about our population, I think we are like everywhere now. I'm happy for some people, they are doing really great here, once they start resettle here. Some of them already bought a house, work, doing things that they like to do. That's great, but we still have a lot of refugee population. They are struggle to like get monthly housing payments, get a job, carpool to work, stuff like that. So yeah, just keep in mind that it is we are working with people with different need, and that yeah, we are aware. And on behalf of the current youth from Omaha community, I just want to say thank you. Thank you all very much. The reason you are here is because you care about, the people, and you want to serve the people. So yeah, we are doing a lot better than some other cities and states. So, we're very proud of Omaha community. So a little bit about demographics in Omaha. We have about 8,000 populations here in Omaha, and we have about 10 churches and 2 Buddhist monasteries. And we have a nonprofit called Korean Society of Nebraska. We have them in 3 different locations, one here in Omaha, one in Lincoln, and one in Madison. That's where we have the most of the Korean population live. I just talked to the chairperson for KSN. He was like mentioning that we really want to have our own space. So maybe that's like the next step for us, to better serve our community. Because right now we rent an apartment and then we just make it an office. Some of the services are like, read meals for the family. We also help with, Medicaid application, it's just like reading meals. And the funny thing is sometimes, we will send our meals in Korean and then some parents will still bring the letter in Korean. We're like, Auntie, this is Korean. They're like, I can't even read Korean. So, that's something that we have to like be aware of. Like some Korean, we don't grow up, like our parents, they don't grow up, learning about their own language because literacy rate is very low in our population. So that's that. And then yeah, like I said, we help with like application. And then if you go to KSN, Korean Society of Nebraska website on Google, you will see the contact information. If you want to reach out, you can do it from there. And some concern we have in the community. The first one is at-risk youth. We have a lot of youth who are yes, like needed a lot of help. And then some of the problems also we realize is parenting, like I mentioned earlier, raising children. It is hard to, to adapt to like raise children a different way. Because like the way the parents were raised is different than the way they want to raise, they have to raise their kids here. So it's for them, it's a lot of adaptation. Language barriers is one. Domestic violence is a big one right now in the community. Access to medical services, housing is one. Continuing education for some of our students. I know like each year we have a lot of students graduated from high school, but not many of them make it to college, and they just see college as like something, a big barriers, which it is, right? It's not very accessible to everybody. Like the process could be very complicated. So I'm glad that we have this, conversation here as well, so we can make it more accessible to our students, and then employment opportunities. And I think, and with the education, continuing education as well, like we have many Korean youth, like especially the guys, right? They have like different skill. Like let's say one of the example, they can cut hair, right? But like they don't know the way to like go about it to get their license. And then that's not something that we have at college. It's like a technical school, right? Like a training program. They don't know the way to go there. So I think like having a mentor will really help in that case. And that's why I have this needs here, mentoring programs, parenting programs, and research on our population, because I think research is very important. We are under research, like I don't think we have a lot of article done in our population. If we really want to know the need, if we really want to serve the population, we have to know the population. And then educational career resources, social services. I don't know if you guys know, but like every, immigrants, refugee family, when they get to the States, they will give it 3 months to like get their life together before they are let go of social services. So it's pretty scary, I think compare, like if I have to compare the states agency services to like, the other country, like let's say Nordic country, we have to do a lot better in serving our people. And then I would say community engagement opportunities, grant funding for refugee-related activities. Yeah, those are the needs that I can think of. And then celebration. We also have to celebrate our students who are doing so much great things. I think each year we have a lot of, current population that graduated from college, go back to help their community, which is a good sign. And and they are becoming what is like a good role model for, you know, the next generation. So that's something that we have to celebrate. And I think majority of us are doing okay, you know, with like adapting to the culture here. Many Korean, you know, parents, they like try to like get a house for the kids, stuff like that. I think we're doing okay. And here are some of the online resources that I put together. If you want to learn more about like the Korean environmental social network, KESEN is very big right now. Korean Education Culture Departments, KECD, KOM, Korean Organization of Minnesota is one of the organizations that is like a leading organization. They have a lot of staff that offer a lot of like a help with like a coaching, you know, like a job search, stuff like that. So I really like their programming. And KSN is here. And then we also have KSN Omaha Youth on Facebook page. And then Thrive Korean is a US-based nonprofit. It's just started like a few weeks ago. They're pretty new, but they are trying to like help the people back home with like educational materials and, you know, support. KPSN, KHRG. And then Korean Educational Resources page is like, yeah, we share, you know, advising knowledges on education stuff. So if anyone want to like partner with me to like, you know, talk about, I don't know, metro process, how to write a paper, example, things like that. And then Pokuthe is a Facebook page. They publish Korean children books. And then we also have Korean Student Association at UNO. So they're also a great resource. They help a lot in the community. And then, yeah, and let's just go to discussion and Q&A. I think I spoke too fast.
No problem, Manger. Thank you so much. You really put together a very comprehensive picture there. And we do have some questions that have already come in. We would start with, you mentioned that your family's, your first home in the United States was in Las Vegas, but then after some time you moved to Omaha, and you mentioned that your mother was having trouble getting work, but how would Omaha have been chosen? And you know, how was it different from Las Vegas for your family experience?
Yeah, great question. So first reason is language barriers. So, cause like back in Vegas, there's not a lot of place where you, cause okay, so you can get a job in like housekeeping stuff, but you still have to speak the language, right? But here in Omaha, there's a lot of meatpacking plants where you don't really have to speak to anyone. You can just go to work, do your thing, get a paycheck. So I think that's number one reason my mom moved here. You know, so that she can work and then provide for the family. So that's one different. And then the next is a community. We have a bigger community here in Omaha compared to Vegas, where there's no Korean. I was like almost one of the, yeah, I think I was one of the only Korean in my school. So, and maybe that's why I pick up on language a lot quicker too. And then when we moved to Omaha, I just like, we have churches, you know, we have community events, and almost every Saturday there's like fundraising events that you can go to. So community is a big thing here in Omaha, yes.
And for any refugee across the states, what might lead them to know about Omaha? Is it friends that are already here?
I would say job, not even friend. I would say job, and then job just make things a lot better. Like when you know, can provide for yourself. And if we have to go back to the Maslow hierarchy, like, you know, the needs to eat, the need to like, you know, be able to like live in your own house is a lot more important than having friend, right? So I would say job, and then friend can come second.
So I want to say that it's really impressive to me, Manger, that you are using what you've learned in the university. And I think a lot of the educators listening will appreciate how you're applying the hierarchy of needs, et cetera, because sometimes we just learn and we don't talk about it. But thank you for making it just a common part of our conversation and helping us to see how that impacts the Korean community. How much English did you know before you moved to Omaha?
Maybe before I moved to the States, right?
Okay, good.
I would say like those cat dog books, pencil pen, pretty like very basic, like elementary English. I could like able to put like them into sentences. So it's pretty low, but something that has helped me when I'm came to States back in Vegas was that I was in the coupon club with my ESL teacher, and she was so smart. She's like, okay, if you help me with this, I teach you English. Okay, that's fine. So I will like help her with coupon and then start to like say things in English, so that way like she can also like spend some after school time working on the coupon, and then I can also benefit from there. So yeah, that's something that I will always remember. I learned English by helping my teachers with coupon.
Interesting. Do you keep in contact with that teacher?
I try, but I don't know if she has like the real name on Facebook. I couldn't find her.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay. So you mentioned concerns from the community about access to medical care. Can you share some of that? And you did say a little bit about when you were in refugee camps, but maybe touch on the refugee camp access to medical care, and then are there concerns also here in the States?
Mm-hmm. I would say something that I noticed is the trust between the medical provider and the population. So back home or back in the camp, there were no like resources, equipment. Like the hospital is like very like nothing. It's just like you get a headache. Okay, here is like a reliever, right? There's no like a surgeon, there's no dentist, there's no like anything for the eyes, nothing, right? So when you come here, there's a lot of resources that you have to like learn. And another thing is the paperwork that come with those medical stuff. That's a lot. It's overwhelming. I think every time you go to the doctor, there's like a paperwork came in, right? And then you are like, okay, is it a bill? Is it not a bill? Like, what does it mean? Is my health insurance gonna cover it? There's so many like consequences that come with that appointment. So I think one of the reasons many population don't want to go to the doctor is that reason. And like having to interpret it, right? Some parents, they will ask the kids to read it. The kids were like, well, I don't learn this in school. So it just like very, yeah, it's a big gap. And then like I said, the trust is because like I mentioned earlier, my dad was like wrongly diagnosed, and it because we were a refugee, right? And then now when you go to the doctor, you are traumatized. Are they gonna treat me the way I am, as human, right? As I'm like needed. So I think it's just like a lot of trauma that come with that we don't talk about. So the trust between the medical provider and the population is very big.
Are there any Korean organizations that are trying to help bridge that gap with the medical part?
Definitely. So KSN is doing a very great job educating the public about it. So they do like a lesson, right? Video recording almost every week, talk about, okay, what does it mean? Where do you need to go for this? Where do you get your COVID shot? Almost every week they have a videos on Facebook page. So we are doing our best to educate our population. And I think, it's also require like some, community worker to like do their job as well. Cause, you cannot really just like offer. And if people don't look at it, don't watch it, then it's not gonna like, go anywhere. So I think it's require a lot of partnership.
Okay. So some of the audience really appreciate the slides that you put up, and I've been asked for you to put the slide of needs up again. Could you put that up? And then audience members, if you had any specific questions about those needs, go ahead and send those to moderator Barbara Velasquez.
What is my need? Concern and need. Concerns.
We'll let you get that up before we ask any more questions. So anybody out there, if you want to hold on to those need statements, you might want to shoot a picture of that or take a screenshot. Manger, is there something on that needs list that you would consider to be the very most important? Like if we were going to attack the challenges of Karen refugees becoming comfortable and well adjusted in Omaha, what would you say, in your opinion, would be the most important need?
Mentoring, practically speaking, I think mentoring is so important. I know we have a few organizations that are starting to, tackle with these problems with youth, but we definitely need more. So if anyone has like ideas, have the time, please mentor our youth. They are the future, and we're here to stay. So we do need like good people to look up to. So mentoring.
Would the refugees in our city that regardless of age, would they want to have relationships with some of our citizens, or would that be intimidating?
No, I think they will appreciate it, but also like again, it's always require like that relationship. Like if you have relationship with them, then it's a lot better to like have like that support, or like they are more likely to listen to you if you really like show them that they care about them. So that question is depend on the relationship you have with that students. And I know many of our youth who are in the mentor program are more likely to do better, to make it to college and to like become like more well-rounded and then have more resiliency. So let's just start from relationship.
Thank you. So shout out to any of you who are providing that mentorship, the care, the genuine interest to students at Metropolitan Community College or elsewhere who came to us as Karen refugees. So, and kind of as a segue to that, you did say that entering college, the whole college experience might seem just like impossible for students. How do we make it more accessible, and what was it? Tell us about your story. How did you decide to go to college? What makes it different? What made it different for you so that you were able to overcome the barriers?
I would say number one, scholarship. It's so important. Like I wouldn't be here without the Buffett scholarship. My mom can never like afford it, and I didn't even know like anything about loans, like student loans, anything like that. So I would say number one, money, scholarship, and number two, community. Having a community on campus, it is very crucial for the students to like feel belonging, and then feel like a part of a community. And number three, I would say validation. It's very important that we feel like our experience is being validated, and that we are here for a reason. We can do it. So we really needed some leader, right, mentor, to really believe in you and to validate who you are. And from there, I think they are more likely to like create resiliency on their own. So yeah, scholarship, community.
All right. So it's evident that you are an inspiration to younger.
I'm doing okay.
Right. I mean, we know that. Who inspired you, or did you do it on your own?
Oh, my problem inspired me. No, I think yeah, I was very blessed to be able to like have, people that really believe in me. So I think people that believe in me or inspire me to like to become, to like always continue to like do better. And my community back home also, I still keep in touch with people back home because back when I graduated, I went to Korean State for the very first time as American citizen. And I experienced a lot of like not culture shock, but like our people are still in the Civil War, right? The Civil War is still there. So we have to do what we can to help people back home. We can't really forget about them. And even people here, we all need help, and having a community, it just like make your life more colorful. And then yeah, having someone to take care of, people to take care of, family to take care of, I think that's really encouraging me to continue to do things.
So is it correct to say that your inspiration comes from knowing the needs of others?
Yeah, that's the best way to put it, I think.
That's really beautiful. Thank you very much for sharing that. And I did want to ask, and so you've allowed this to be a good point to bring this up. Tell us, you went back to the Korean state. What is the current status? Are there people still in refugee camps? Are there refugees still applying and going through that process? What do we know about that transition continuing?
So in 2012, like Burma like went through some changes in terms of their election and stuff. So they were like try to try to move toward democratic election, but we all know it's like, it's just propaganda. It's just something that on the paper. So people from the camp are given the chance to go back to their homeland in Burma. Some chose to go, some chose not because they don't trust the authority. And if the people who are not, who did not choose to go back home, they are still living in the refugee camp today. And people who chose to go back home, they're now running because of the coup that happened. So, it's like what happened in history, it continued to happen. And it's just like very hard to like say who's safe and who's not safe right now, because yeah, the coup happened a year ago on February 1st, 2021, and now 2022. And we don't know what's going to happen in the future, but people are running almost every day, especially in Korean states, but there's no like big news media that cover that. So we just have to like learn it from our family, friends, and small media outlet.
Thank you. Thank you. You did a nice job of explaining names, language, how difficult it can be to learn English when you don't have a similar language base, right? Are there other major issues that stand out to you in education that make it hard for Korean students to succeed?
Number one, I would say like curriculum. So I think, like when I came here, I was given the ACT test without no practice, no nothing. So I, did really bad. So that really like, I was like, am I really like bad, students, or what is it, I think about it now, like, I'm not really prepared for that, and back in the camp, we are not taught, I did not learn about any of this, American history or like science or math, I was like, we were only like, learn about some basic stuff. So it's pretty hard to like, adapt in terms of education. And also like students, when they first came to the States, they were placed to class grades based on their age, right? And sometimes your age on the paper is not your real age, because like the people who did the number like messed it up, or let's say. So then instead of, let's say I'm like 13 and on my paperwork it's like 18, I will miss a lot of grades. So that's some of the barriers. And also I noticed that some of our kids or our youth who struggle with math and science, because like we were not prepared for like, your English level, math and science and physics. So that's really like make us think that we are just dumb, but we're not. So I think educators really need to like encourage students to rethink the way they approach testing and curriculum, and yeah, stuff like that. Because I did not really enjoy high school much because I think it's very, I don't know, I don't have the right to say it, but I don't think it's really helped me a lot because of like the structure, how like, yeah, I don't have words. It just but I really appreciate college for helping me, giving me the creativity to become to write about what I really want, to choose my own major and career, stuff like that. So
Thank you. That's even more impressive that you went on to college after you had that not so positive experience in the high school. I'm going to send you a video when I have it ready, Manger, and anybody else can access this also. Yesterday we had a Chinese professor who's lived in the States for a long time that discusses how sometimes countries focus too much on testing and how that is hurting education. And he grew up in China and he reflects on that, on what he sees as positive in the way the Chinese teach, but what's very not positive, right? And it kind of speaks to some of the things that you said. So it might be a tool that you or others could use to encourage people who are not good testers, for example, or not having success with tests. So I just remind me of that, and anybody else can too. So this is from a faculty member. Is there anything that those who work with Korean students should be aware of regarding relationships between the Korean people and those from other ethnic groups from the same area, such as, and I apologize if I do not pronounce this correct, the Karenni, is that correct?
Yep.
And the Kachin?
Kachin.
Kachin, thank you. Do you have any advice for college faculty and staff who work with Korean students on how we can help the students feel welcomed and that they belong in our schools? So there's two sides to that question. One is, should we know anything about the relationship or lack of relationship, how to treat that, and then how to make students feel more welcome? You can spend as much time as you want.
Number one, I would say we really have to understand the cultural differences, right? So for example, people that are raised in Asia, or like at least in Burma, Myanmar, Thailand, around those areas, are really raised in ways with like what is it, power dynamics. So it's a lot harder for us to like reach out for help or even have relationship with someone higher, let's say a faculty member. They will like, oh my god, we respect you so much, we can't talk to you, right? And that's like coming from a humble standing, and that's not because we don't want to talk to you, it's because like we were raised in ways that, okay, you're a kid, you stay there, and I'm an adult, I would tell you what to do, right? In that sense. So sometimes I think it's almost feel like, oh my god, this young people are, I really want to mentor them, but they don't really want to reach out. That's not because they don't want it, it's because they respect the the relationship so much that they don't want to like be too close. But I think also understanding that many of our people are adapting to the American culture, where okay, yeah, it's okay, you can be a professor and I can sit right by you and then we can talk about life. So maybe just like go by case. So I don't want to like generalize the whole population. So some of our students might be okay with like having like a relationship, mentoring, or like working with professor with a more level like a understanding or like a conversation, whereas some people really want to be like down here just because they want to respect you. So that's something. And what's the second question?
The relationships between Karen people and the Karenni and the
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would say it's pretty much similar, but throughout history, the Korean are a lot more oppressed, I would say, in terms of like the revolution, because like they were one of the Korean like were one of the first people who started, like a revolution to really like, defend themselves. And then in Korean states, actually something very interesting is that they used to have their own kingdom, right? They govern themselves, they have their own education, whatever. Doesn't mean they are less oppressed. They are still oppressed as Korean, but it just they were still able to like manage their own authority and people and governing their own people. And whereas Kachin, they are more they are more advanced in terms of education because their border is China, right? Like where they have more relationship, and then good partnership with like some other country, and that I don't think they started revolution sooner than the Korean, and that they have more knowledge into like what is the right word, not civilized, but like they are more likely to like come out and then have more relationship with people because they grew up more in the city area, whereas the Korean, right, we are like from the bushes. So that just some dynamics that I want to mention, but like I said, doesn't mean we are less oppressed than another. It just, that's the fact.
sounds like there's a lot to be learned to
Yeah.
maybe seek out more information. But thank you. You've given us a really nice, simple view, right? Back to that, making it more welcoming at an institution or more appropriate because of the possibility that someone might feel uncomfortable getting too close to who they see as someone they should respect. Would you suggest that just like you are doing at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, institutions employ Korean people to try to create those relationships and the welcoming presence?
Mhm.
And then maybe it gives an opportunity for those who are interested to step in and be introduced more, you think?
That would be great. Yeah, I think we like systematically speaking, we do really need to hire people from those backgrounds. That way they can, work with those population. Yeah, I think that would be great. And I know a few years ago, like we had a like an Asian club at MCC. I don't know if it's still a thing, but I think that's some positive thing that I have seen over a few years. But right now, since COVID and everything, I think it's kind of like dies down a little bit. But maybe that's something that we can go back and then revive the spirit a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. This is another question. In your experience, has it been easier for Korean women and girls to assimilate than for Korean men and boys? Or is it equally easy for both boys and girls? Your opinion.
It's a lot harder as women to to like try to get things done because again, like the power dynamics. So example, if there's like two kids in the house, and if I'm the oldest and if I'm the woman, I'm more likely encouraged to go to work than my younger brother will encourage to go to school because I'm the oldest plus the woman. So woman has a lot to a lot of responsibility at home. They are just, I don't know, somehow so embedded in the current culture, how like, okay, women are more, I don't know, responsible for a lot more stuff. And I don't like that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. If and audience members, if any of these questions, if I'm not presenting them appropriately, shoot us another follow-up and we'll see if we can help you with that. So I told you before we got started, Manger, that people were really excited about your presentation. The questions have just been pouring in, and I want to thank the audience because we are getting really close to the end here, and it's because it's been filled with very powerful conversation and learning, and we appreciate that. If there were one thing, Major, that you could get people in general in Omaha to do to make life better for Karen refugees, what would it be?
Mm. I would say to really understand where we were coming from, because it's not always easy coming from that background. So number one, understand. And I know this is gonna sound cliche, but like to love each other, like to really engage each other, to like try to like create a harmonious community, because again, like I said, these people are here to stay. So it's very important that we as a host make it, like we can engage them, right? Not just like, oh yeah, I know about you, but like, okay, how can you engage with them? Maybe like, come to our events, or like come to our, like, I don't know, party, Christmas party example. So yeah, I would say engagement is very important.
Okay. And you mentioned that Omaha is maybe doing better than some other communities. What would you say are the things that Omaha has done well that set us aside?
Mhm. I would say our hospitality, right? That's the right word, right?
Mhm.
Hospitality, and how just our culture. I really enjoy having the Midwest culture here, and we have a river. That's remind us of like our back home, right? In current states, we take care of the fishes, the river, the trees, and here in Omaha, Omaha offer exactly just that, right? So we can have our own lifestyle, but just in a different river, right? Not Missouri instead of Salween River. So I would say it's very much like home here. And then the community, like a mentoring program, like a OPS, I think they are doing a lot, doing what they can to really engage our students, and then the community. Yeah. So.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. And in terms of that hospitality, I know you mentioned that the churches may be important to some, and you mentioned the Buddhist religion. Would that be the preferred religion of most of the Karen refugees, or is it a mix?
It's a mixed, but somehow, or it's just not accessible for our Buddhist brothers and sisters, but somehow we have more churches than the Buddhist monastery. I don't know why. Maybe we're more divided in the Christian churches. I don't know. But there's like two monastery. One is like very like big current population. One is mixed with other ethnicities. But when church is more like yeah, 10 churches, probably more. But yes, but then we also have some Muslim community as well, but they are just not as big, so they would just go to like a embedded church, like a mosque here in Omaha.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. As I said, we're coming close to the end. I want to really thank you very much, Manger, for your willingness again to reach out to the community and help us learn. I'm going to give you a chance to share any final comments that you would like to share with our audience.
Yeah, I would like to say thank you, MCC community for hosting this. Sometimes it's really hard for me to like verbalize some of my feelings and my experience, but I learned that if I don't say it, like not you guys are not gonna know about it. So it took a lot of courage for me to like share about it, even when I like talk about it very often. It's still hard for me to talk about it. And and I would say I would like to encourage our community to like work with us, and then help us engage here in Omaha community. And I am very thankful for this opportunity and the liberty that we have here in the States. It's like freedom is not free. I experience it almost every day. Like when I look at the news back home, people are dying, and that's including my family and relatives. And it's very hard, and I'm very thankful for the freedom that I have here in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think I can speak for everyone that we so appreciate you're sharing with us. In learning about refugee populations, and specifically the Karen, makes Omaha a better place and makes Metropolitan Community College a stronger institution. So thanks again, Manger, and thank you everyone for being with us.